Hey, hello everyone. Hello, welcome to the 5, 8.5. My name is Lisa Graves, and tonight I am joined by Greg Olear, who is a producer of this show and who helped create and develop the 5, 8. So, Greg, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see
Yeah.
you. Happy
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
Nadine Smith, our beloved co-host over here, is tied up right now this week. She, as you may know, was recently chosen to be the new head of Color of Change, which is a really amazing digital organizing organization that has played a tremendous role in advancing rights for Black Americans and really challenging corporate power. I first encountered Color of Change when I was working on my Alec Exposed project, and we worked together with Color of Change on a campaign to get corporations to drop Alec after it turned out that it had been ratified the Stand Your Ground law that led initially to the murderer, the man who killed George Zimmerman, the man who killed Trayvon Martin, not being charged, and then ultimately him being not convicted. And so my ties to Color Change go way back, but I'm so excited for Nadine, and we'll look forward to having her back on next week. But in the meantime, we have one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, and I'm sure yours here, Greg Olear. Greg. I
Oh,
know I
okay. I was like, who is this person that's coming
your third person. It's you. I'm so glad
yeah.
you're here, Greg. I'm
No,
so
thank
glad
you.
to get to do this with you.
I was going to say, who's lucky is Color of Change because they get Nadine. That's the way I
Yeah.
feel about it.
Yeah. No,
That's a good hire.
that's right.
Good hire by them, I have to say.
Yeah, she's really amazing. It's a loss for the Florida Equality Project, but it's a gain for Color of Change and for the nation to have her playing this national role starting at the beginning of the year. Nadine is a real treasure and a real hero. And yeah, so we will soldier on today. And have our own dynamic, wonderful conversation, Greg. So
we'll try. We're going to give it the college try. That's what we're going to do.
How are you doing?
I think I'm okay. I'm good. Yeah. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. We had family around, and we made mashed potatoes and gravy and stuffing and all the usual stuff. My mom made Watergate salad, the one that has the pistachio pudding and the marshmallows.
Oh, nice.
What I only get every couple of years with the all the little special treats in it, pecans and pineapple. Very not Thanksgiving, but in our family, that's one of the little. Oh, and also, like, of course, I realized later in life that calling it a salad when it involves pistachio pudding and marshmallows, not exactly a salad, but in the Midwest, that's very much a salad. So yeah. How about you? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. We had a full house. We had people over. It was nice. People are asking in the chat what this is. My brother-in-law gave me a book that's like a history of cocktails.
Oh.
So this is like an official original margarita.
Oh. Right. Well, we will pre-toast.
Pre-toast.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Which I've never made successfully before. So it's pretty good.
Also, my nephew was here and I got to play 3 rounds of Ticket to Ride, which is a board game. And basically, I don't get to play board games very much. And so basically, after 3 games, I was like, "You want to play another?" It was like, no, we're good. We're good.
Yeah. TikTok time. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was good. And it's there was a blizzard here in the northern states right before Thanksgiving, and got to see my brother and my mom and a sister-in-law and nephew. And so it was good. It was great. And my sweet husband made the apple pie from the apples on our apple tree, which was also really nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him. That's yeah. We bought pie, which was good. The pies we bought were good ones. So, can't complain about that.
That's great. Well, we hope everyone out there had, regardless of your views about the different, situations in terms of the celebration of Thanksgiving in America, making holidays our own as a time of Thanksgiving, and not necessarily the mythology of the Pilgrims and what happened next. I think it's a important it's important for us to try to find times to really savor our lives and our friendships and our family in these really trying times. And I have to say, like this week, I was feeling like, I think it's because it's December, I was feeling a little exhausted by this administration. I mean,
Really,
it is it is a chaos machine. It is
it really is.
chaos machine. Like, and it's not like a chaos machine like once a week on some sort of schedule. It's just like round the clock nonsense. And it does get exhausting. I think partly because I took a couple days actually away from it for Thanksgiving. I came back and I was like, what is all this noise again? So we're back in the, back in the chaos of it all. And we got some topics to talk about.
We do.
So
we do.
I'm gonna put the banner up.
You know who must have had turkey is Trump, because the L-tryptophan seems to be working overtime with that guy. He's been asleep for the last 4 days, looks like.
Yeah, I mean, his comments on Biden, I would never sleep on the job. There he is.
Please.
Sleeping after. And also actually Gavin Newsom and his social media advisor, put out this statement about Gavin Newsom's health and also how he would never fall asleep during meetings. It's hilarious. So there's some good satire poking fun at the authoritarian regime, and you have to have humor because as John Lennon said, they don't know how to respond to nonviolence and humor. That's something they can't vilify as easily. No,
they can't. I'm enjoying the pictures of Trump sleeping because it really actually looks like Trump embalmed, and I like to, I'd like to just to imagine what we get to that part of things. Be nice.
Oh, it is hard. I mean, and the other part is like these cabinet meetings are just ridiculous. Someone said it's not a cabinet, like a kitchen cabinet, which used to be the origin of the name cabinet for the secretaries was this idea that this was the kitchen, the people that the president would have around the table or kitchen table to advise. But someone said it's not a kitchen cabinet. It's not a cabinet. It's a junk drawer. And we see evidence of that on such a regular basis. But let's talk about Coke. Let's talk about Coke, and not the usual Coke I talk about, KOCH, but COKE. Although I did, when we launched Alec Exposed, we had this image that we were using on social media, which was, what is Coke, Coca-Cola, doing with Coke, KOCH? And actually, Color of Change did the calls to Coca-Cola and said, hey, if you don't get out of Alec, we're going to run some ads asking you what you're doing in bed with Coke. But anyway, this time we're actually talking about COKE and not the Coke can, but the just bizarre and outrageous and horrific situation we're in, where we have an administration asserting a right to destroy fishermen's boats off the coast of Venezuela, people who are in a small boat that would take at least 20 refills to get anywhere near the coast of the United States, being blown out of the water. And we'll talk about that in the next section on war crimes. But purportedly because of drug running. And then you have, the former leader of Honduras who was actually convicted by a court of law for possibly being one of the biggest Coke distributors in the United States in our history. And just the other day, Trump pardoned him. What's your take on that, Greg?
I feel like, Don Jr. was like, why is my dealer still in jail? I'm having trouble getting joking. I don't think he actually does Coke, actually. But no, the whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, he's pardoning people left and right who don't deserve pardons. I mean, it's in the Constitution that the president can have this power, and it's very vague, and it's really at the discretion of the president. And there's not much, as I understand it, there's not much you can do about it. But it's sort of predicated on the fact that the president just isn't going to willy-nilly pardon just any old person because they pay him money or whatever. I mean, remember the guy, what's his name? Rod Blagojevich, I mean, he took money for pardons. I mean, that was one of the, or took money to, these are, and went to jail. And then Trump pardoned him, and some piece of irony. He was also, by the way, when he was in Congress, this Blago guy, was on the committee that drafted the report that the Republicans did criticizing Bill Clinton for pardoning Mark Rich, this kind of tax cheat asshole, but who, gave a lot of money, I guess his wife did, to the campaign or whatever. And it was very sketchy. So the Republicans clutched their pearls, and now it's just blown by that. Because he's pardoned people, and not just now, he did this before too. He's pardoned people who haven't even gone to trial yet. There was the guy, Ken Kurson, who was the editor of the Observer and Jared's buddy, and also who knows Giuliani, was like about to go to trial for like stalking, which is very hard to even get anybody to pay attention to legally and all this stuff. And he got pardoned before the case even went to trial. So people are in danger because of some of these pardons, like legitimate danger. And I think that if you ask anybody objectively, and I wanted this to be a big deal during the campaign, but no one ever listens to me. I don't think anybody normal person who looks at the pardon structure of what Trump has done would agree with it or be able to justify it. It's infuriating, and it flies in the face of really the rule of law. I mean, we either have the rule of law or we don't. Like you went to law school. I mean, what, do we have rule of law? What happens when we have no more rule of law? I mean,
Well, that's why I wrote that piece last week about the Nuremberg film and the Nuremberg trials, because the lead prosecutor in the United States says, the only way to prevent this sort of thing, to deal with this propensity of some people to go too far, is to have the rule of law apply to everyone, to have no one be above the law. I'll send the link around, but like John Roberts undid that fundamental principle by giving Trump counter constitutional immunity that paved the way for Trump's return to power. And then all the ways this year he's gone to bat to help Trump engage in all sorts of unilateral and extreme actions. And also I've been, I reread the Trump versus United States decision again today, because I remember that in it, we had John Roberts introducing some gratuitous arguments about the pardon power being so vast in there, even though that case wasn't about the pardon power, but it was on John Roberts' mind as he was getting ready to send a big signal to some subset of the American people that Donald Trump did no wrong and could do no wrong, even though we all saw with our own eyes what Trump unleashed on January 6th of 2021, which certainly was an effort to basically a coup that was not successful. Through a kind of stochastic terrorism of, telling people if they don't fight, they're not going to have a country left, and they need to go down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol and make sure, that Mike Pence does the right thing. That was calculated. And as I note in my book, one of the findings that was kind of overlooked from the January 6th committee, but I thought was one of the most telling findings, was that Donald Trump on January 4th or January 5th told his acting Secretary of Defense, the guy he appointed after he lost the election, Chris Miller, that the National Guard in DC should be disarmed. They shouldn't have batons. They shouldn't have shields. They should not have any weapons on them for January 6th. And Chris Miller issued an order through, one of his commands that basically no one could rearm the Guard without his personal say-so. And in fact, what the January 6th committee found was that it was not until 4:30 in the afternoon that day that Chris Miller gave the orders for the National Guard of DC to be rearmed and to get to the Capitol help. They didn't get to the Capitol 5:30 after most of the people had dispersed, after most of the damage was done, but Mike Pence was safe, and Nancy Pelosi was safe. And, that was a coup that they, didn't happen. And now we have, Trump having pardoned people who were instrumentally involved in those violent acts, some of whom had other very violent histories as well, who were pardoned right away when Trump became president again. And then some of the people who worked on the defense of those individuals have been rewarded with jobs, including the guy who's now the pardon attorney. Although I'm not sure what he's really doing because the pardon attorney job, it was actually down the hall from me when I was at the Justice Department. That office was down the hall around the corner, and it had a set of standards. When someone asked for clemency or asked for their sentence to be commuted or asked to be released, there were procedures that the pardon attorney's office would follow to assess, like, were they going to recommend that someone get a pardon? Had they shown remorse? Were there other extenuating circumstances? Like all the things that are the types of things that a rational executive would want to know before they grant a pardon. Like, kind of, was this sentence out of par with other sentences? Was there a racial component to it? Like, a variety of ways to give grace or, rectify an injustice. But now it's just, what Trump decides on a whim, who he decides to favor, and the pardoning of people who have ripped people off. Of, like, one of the guys who was pardoned this past week ripped people off, I think, to the tune of $1.6 billion from investors, and he got pardoned. But
if it was more of a ripoff, he could be one of the senators from Florida. It's just this is how this stuff flies with this guy.
Well,
they're criminals.
I saw someone put a note in the chat about Henry Cuellar, the Democratic congressman who was facing a trial coming up for allegations that he took a bribe. This was an investigation that was pursued in the Biden administration, and I don't care that he was a Democrat. If there was evidence that he took a bribe from an oil company or the Bank of Mexico to curry favor or to help those entities, I think that there should be consequences of that. But Trump doesn't, because I think he is wielding this power to basically let people go who either in that instance were charged with a crime, but in other instances, like the former congressman from New York, the compulsive liar, who Trump pardoned like a month ago. That was just like a month ago that happened. It's now in the distant memory.
Are we sure he's a real person? I feel like he's not. I feel like it's like a Halloween gag that comes up once a year on, like, around October 31st, and then it's a thing.
I mean, you couldn't write the script if you had written the script about that congressman, like volleyball star, former drag queen, like the whole
and his twin sister or something who's also apparently a grifter. Yeah, it's insane.
You couldn't. They would laugh you out of the building. They would just be like, that is just not even a realistic plot for a farce. But we are in the land of the farce, and being led by this clown with this sort of clown car of pardons, of people being pardoned, people who have genuinely harmed seriously harmed other people. Both, some of them have harmed people physically, and some people have harmed others financially, and now they're just walking free.
Right.
It's just
putting people in danger even going forward. But speaking of complete clowns and clown cars and people running the administration, we should talk for a few minutes before we have our guest come on and join us about this Hegseth business. Because this guy he's such a joke, except that he's dangerous. I mean, he seems to just want to kill things and kill people. That seems to be his main thing. That and
kill them all.
And hair gel and killing people and makeup. I guess all those things are what he's interested in. Because remember, when he spoke to the generals, he was talking about maximum lethality, and we're going to turn soldiers into these killing machines and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about, man? Did you read the Art of War was written like 2,500 years ago? You win the war without going to battle, dumbass, for one thing. But like now does anyone in the fucking world really believe that Pete Hegseth didn't do the order to go kill the people in the boats? There's literally anyone under the sun. And then he's like, well, I wasn't there. I wasn't in the room. That guy did it. But we love that guy. He's a hero. And it's like, I don't know. I don't, he's such a toxic masculinity kind of guy. But the whole, like, the idea that, the hyper masculine alpha role, the stereotype that these guys claim to kind of want to emulate. Throwing the guy underneath you under the bus and not taking responsibility yourself is the least stereotypically alpha male thing it's possible to do.
Where's the buck stops with me masculinity or heroism, now, right?
To be clear, My theory is that he was in the room, but he blackout drunked and he kind of forgot. So what do you think? What's your take on this?
I mean, this is, first of all, at one point when he was a commentator, like actually paid as a commentator versus paid by us, at the helm of the Defense Department, he actually said out loud that you can't do what what they just did, basically. And it seems quite clear that the second tap was not just an order from the commander, but was an order from above him. And yet, I don't know how they think that they're going to get other people to follow their illegal orders if they throw the first guy that really gets circled for it under the bus. Because the fact is that this is also happening in the context of the conversation we just had, which is this is purportedly a war environment, involving these fishermen off the coast of Venezuela, and so purportedly domestic law of murder doesn't apply, and so the law of war applies. And his claim this is the fog of war means he actually didn't watch the film Fog of War, because that's not the claim he would make. But second of all, the law of war is really clear, and it's been really clear not just for decades, but for centuries, that you can't kill people who are surrendering or who are injured. You can't murder them after an initial strike. And in fact, that doing so risks the lives of all of our soldiers abroad. Like, why would anyone follow those rules if we're not going to follow them ourselves? But exactly. I also think, like, the first strike, not just the second, quote, tap, which is a sort of way of minimizing the second round of murders. The first round of murders seem to be lawless as well. There's no congressional authorization. There's no actual war with Venezuela. There's no declared war, congressionally declared war with Venezuela. There's not a predicate for these actions, killing these Venezuelans or people who are coming from Venezuela, in boats. And also, the fact is that it's not actually a death penalty offense, for drug dealers. Like, you don't, like, if they were actually captured and charged, if there was proof that they were even coming to the United States versus some other country, and proof that they were carrying drugs, that, proof that wasn't destroyed by missiles, or if it existed ever, those would be, criminal offenses that you don't get summary execution for. You don't get murdered by the state without a trial, without a jury, without a judge, without a sentence, just for being in a boat. And so, it really is terrifying that Trump thinks that he can assert this power. And that's not the only power he's asserted. He has asserted that the members of Congress, the 6 members of Congress who appeared in the video talking about this fundamental principle of military justice, that you cannot follow any legal order. You have to follow a legal order, but you cannot follow any legal order. And if the order diverges from the law, there's a set of instructions that all service people have been trained in. And meanwhile, Trump has said that those Congress people should be killed. They should be hanged. So his propensity to threaten violence and death to anyone is super dangerous. These aren't just words. That those members of Congress have received death threats from his stochastic,
his minions, his dipshits,
who believe his deceitful and lawless claims.
Yeah, I will say I stand with Trump. I am totally fine with using capital punishment for treason. I'm good with that. I just think our definition of what treason is maybe a little different than his.
Well, no, and in fact he said that it was sedition. And what is sedition? It is organizing an attack on the government. And even though Trump was not charged with sedition for his acts around January 6th, what he was urging was sedition.
Yeah. The whole thing is, it's in my opinion. It was. Period. Yeah. Full stop. He's a traitor. He's ineligible to be president under the 14th Amendment, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, thanks to the Supreme Court as well, overturning the ruling.
Your guy, your umpire, your Trumpire.
Not my guy, not my guy, not my guy. Speaking of rogue judges, this guy, rogue judge, we are now going to invite to the show our wonderful guest, I'm so glad that she is joining us. She's been on the 5-8 before. Actually, she might have been on the 5-8.5. Certainly been on the 5-8. I am so pleased to have the person who, in her day job, is my deputy executive director at True North Research, and it's Alyssa Bowen.
Hey,
Alyssa.
Hi,
Welcome
thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Doing well, yeah. Better than our country based on our conversation.
Yeah,
I think most people are doing better than the country, I think.
Yeah,
that's true. It's a low bar.
Yeah.
It is. It's been tough. It's been tough. Well, Alyssa has been working on helping to support public awareness about a hearing that is happening in Congress tomorrow before the Senate Judiciary Committee, where no less than Ted Cruz, is that an actual phrase? No less than Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, by the way, well, I'll tell the Ted Cruz story in a moment. But anyway, he is holding a hearing in which he is suggesting impeachment for the judges who have stood up to Donald Trump, who have followed the rule of law, who have issued temporary restraining orders consistent with longstanding legal precedents and the facts, temporarily blocking some of the Trump activities, actions, unilateral actions, and claiming that these are, quote, rogue judges, which is the language that Trump has used, among other language he's used to attack any judge who dares to stand up to him. And so Alyssa has been working on helping people understand that the real rogue judges are on the U.S. Supreme Court, not following the rule of law.
I think you've been doing more than almost anyone helping people understand that, Lisa.
It's true. It's a team effort. Yes.
But it is true. I mean, the so-called rogue judges that they're attacking, they're doing things like protecting voting rights and
how dare they?
I know, blocking prosecutions from Trump, like political picks that are trying to prosecute like people who don't deserve to be prosecuted, and ensuring the rule of law, but not in the way that they understand it, in the way that we understand it, which is, pursuing justified inquiries into this administration's disregard for court orders. There's so many things that these rogue judges are doing that are really unappealing to Trump and to the Senate Judiciary Committee. And, and then on the other side, it's folks that were installed by Trump and the court capture operation behind him that's been going on, and as everyone probably knows on the show, preceded Trump. But yeah, and there's some wild witnesses also that we could talk about on.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Greg, what's your thought? Are these? I think I know the answer. I'm going to ask it anyway. These lower court judges who dare to say, hey, you got to follow court orders, and you have to be truthful to the court, can't lie to it, and you're following. Are these the rogue judges, or do we have 6 rogue judges at the top of the system there at the Supreme Court? What do you think?
Is rogue judge something that Ted Cruz said?
Is
that a quote from him?
No, it's a quote from Trump that then became the heading of the hearing.
Because I know, Ted Cruz, I think it was Rick Wilson who called him Fat Wolverine. So Rogue is also a character in the X-Men, so maybe he's got X-Men on the brain. Ted Cruz always likes this weird pop cultural shit, even though literally everyone in the pop culture hates his guts, which is kind of funny. So no, clearly the answer is, the Supreme Court is rogue, and not only rogue, just undermining everything. And I salute these lower court judges. I think they're the only thing. I don't think it's hyperbole to say they're the only thing that's keeping us going here from falling completely into fascism. Yeah. And that makes this fight to protect them extremely important, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they, in essence, they have the votes theoretically in the House to impeach anyone they want if they vote in a party line, which is one of the reasons why this Congress is so out of control, so sycophantic toward Trump. Like the other than on Epstein, the willingness of these members to just go after, do what he wants. Like basically fund ICE more than the U.S. Marines, which is absurd.
Extend
these
secret
tax
police
cuts,
gonna,
into oblivion, and and put a bunch of people, millions of Americans at risk of these massive premium increases. Like, this Congress is not actually doing its job. But of course, there's time for Ted Cruz to have this hearing that's just a talking points hearing. And it also, involves some of the right-wing operatives who have been at the forefront of the attack machine. So, one of the people testifying tomorrow on the list is someone who works with a thing called the Article 3, Article 3 project, although, how much of a project it is or whatever, we don't know. But that's the project that's led by the guy who was Mike Davis, who was a contender for being attorney general, and who said that he wanted Democrats' dead bodies dragged through the streets. He said politically, like metaphorically, whatever that means. And he called for journalists who criticized Trump to be thrown in a gulag, like literally, he said gulag. So it's, his group is one of the groups that's testifying in favor of impeaching these lower court judges. They wouldn't have the votes to convict them in the United States Senate. The Senate is too narrowly divided to win a conviction, but it's definitely intended to chill or to try to intimidate judges that they.
Yeah. Did she freeze? I think she froze. Alyssa, then you have to pick up the slack. you have to take the baton here.
A fun thing about Article 3. Oh, sorry, you froze, Lisa.
But yes, how did you go? Yeah.
A fun thing about Article 3 Project 2 is that the original funding, it was seeded by Leonard Leo's network, so one of his main entities. And so everyone probably listening in knows that Leonard Leo is the guy we can thank for the far-right faction dominant on the Roberts Court. And so it really just highlights that this is just a kind of a parade of court capture operators that are behind the scenes, and how much of a show trial sort of it is, as Lisa was saying.
Is there, this is my question to you, is there Trump is going to nominate judges and all this stuff, but are they all going to go the way of the horrible, isn't there, because it used to be that people would get on the Supreme Court and then they would kind of do their own thing. And that seems to have stopped completely. Every once in a while, Gorsuch with the Native American stuff, and maybe Amy sometimes, but otherwise these people are just, just a Nazi march to fascism. It seems like in lockstep, goose stepping their way towards whatever. But on the lower courts, especially, there's been Trump judges who have gone against him, right or wrong. I mean, I think there are. I don't know.
There are a lot, actually. Okay. I mean, Court Accountability, our partner organization, also just came out with a study that shows that almost in equal measure, Trump appointees on the lower courts and Democratic appointees are voting at similar levels to stop Trump. And then, everything's escalated to the stooges on the far right stooges on the Supreme Court. And then I don't know what the percentage is. It's something like 90%, right, Lisa, that they're voting to back Trump.
Yes. So on the Supreme Court, on the Supreme Court this year, in terms of these emergency orders, the rate is more than 90% in favor of Trump, which means overturning those emergency orders 24 times to benefit Trump, to aid Trump, to overturn these lower court rulings. And as Alyssa mentioned, Court Accountability's analysis of the lower court judges shows that about 60% of the time they have ruled against Trump, and they ruled against Trump, both Republican appointees and Democratic appointees, because Trump's actions have been in violation and derogation, in transgression of either the Constitution or statutes or regulations or longstanding case law, decades old case law, or contracts. And just a parade of lawlessness, with the Musk activities of the Doge or the Dodgy that no longer supposedly exists, even though it never really was authorized in the first place to do what was being done. And, so you have an array of actions where our private data, for example, has been exposed to people who had no qualifications or clearance really to get access to that data because of Musk's, effort.
Hey, now, I won't accept big balls slander on this show.
Yeah. So, but this court, the Roberts Court, has countenanced that. Basically, it's not, and the easiest thing this court to have done would have been to leave those temporary restraining orders in place. They're temporary. They're there to hold the status quo until the substantive merits of the cases can be resolved. And yet this court, the Roberts Court, has turned the temporary restraining order standard on its head and basically acted as if it's not the American people who are facing irreparable harm from this array of policies, including, people who've been in the United States who are now being removed from the United States to countries they have no connection to countries that are in their own state of chaos, to, basically expose people to the risk of their death or torture. Like, the Supreme Court has allowed that when it could have just allowed the lower courts to do their jobs, temporarily restrain those activities, issue rulings, and then have those appeals come up to the court and have the court rule on the merits one way or the other. But in the dark of night, through the shadow docket, they have overturned these rulings, and they've done so in ways that other judges, former judges, including Michael Luttig, who was appointed by George Herbert Walker Bush to the Fourth Circuit, who has long had a reputation as a stalwart, conservative, but a conservative judge, not a liberal progressive by any means, has said that the court's actions on these emergency orders are illegitimate. It's illegitimate for the Supreme Court to be acting in this way. And I agree. And so, yeah, I mean, that's why, but to your earlier question, Greg, like, didn't we used to have judges who weren't so predictable? Yeah. In fact, that's why this whole conduit was struck up by the Federal Society and really refined by Leonard Leo and his billionaire backers, so that they would have people who would be ringers. So you wouldn't have someone like Souter. And in fact, John Roberts, as I write in my book, is the first beneficiary of the No More Souters campaign, because they didn't want someone who was a traditional conservative. Souter was on the New Hampshire Supreme Court. He had, reputation as a conservative, Republican, but when he got on the Supreme Court, he actually did what a judge is supposed to do: follow the law, not impose his personal views as law. And they don't want that. That's why we have Roberts and Alito and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. And that's why Clarence Thomas was, in essence, the first success of that effort to plant someone on the court who was a rigid doctrinaire person who would basically go along with aiding the right wing at every turn. And so we don't have judges who are actually fairly interpreting the law. We have people who are put on the court to roll back a century of law. And that's what they're doing.
No, it's like, my joke is that stare decisis is just Sam Alito's drag name. That's it. That's what it is. They go back and they just cherry pick stuff. Hey, by the way, Aileen Cannon was born in Colombia, by the way. So, if ICE is bored and has nothing to do, I'm just saying, I don't know.
Well, I mean, the thing that is that, like, they basically are throwing everything open as if settled law is not settled law. Like, the idea that if you're born in the United States, you're not a citizen, that is what the Constitution says. That's what it commands in the first section of the 14th Amendment. And yet they're like, oh, it's fair game. Well, so, I actually think we should consider this pardon power. So what? If the president has pardon power, he can't use it corruptly. He shouldn't be able to abuse it. If he uses it in a way that enriches himself or his family, or, otherwise is malignant or corrupt, then, maybe we ought to be reconsidering those pardons and putting limits on the pardon power. Like, why should we be stuck with whatever rules exist if the other side, if the Supreme Court is basically rewriting the law so fast you can't even see it go by on a weekly basis, basically overturning lower court rulings without telling them, hey, we're no longer going to follow that precedent we've been following for 100 years and all the last 10 presidents have followed. Not for Trump. Trump gets to do what he wants. Like, I just cannot believe we're in this circumstance. And I'm someone who has carried around that Constitution in my pocket, my suit coat, for years, because I actually, believe in the majesty of the law and believe in equal protection of the law and the aspirations of the Constitution. So yeah, it really is extraordinary. Oh, so we have a question. Who will be the first person who wasn't born in the United States to run for president? Yeah, if everything's a fair game, Gretchen Whitmer, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Look, these Republicans tried to say that John McCain couldn't run for president because he was born on a U.S. military base, which is technically U.S. soil, abroad. So, it doesn't matter what the rules are. They basically are trashing them or trying to trash them to their advantage.
That's why this whole business about like Trump running for the third term, if he's still alive, he's going to run for the third term.
They're selling the 20.
They're not gonna be like, oh, we have to follow the law. The laws, I don't care. What there is no law anymore regarding this guy.
Yeah, and or they would do some sort of maneuver where they have Vance run and then have him step down and have Trump succeed him. And they're like, well, he didn't technically run for president.
If I was Vance and that happened, I would not step down. By the way, I'd be very careful with that.
Yeah,
Vance would be like, go back to the retirement home, old man.
You never thought you'd utter, if I were Vance.
If I were Vance, I would be at an Ethan Allen outlet right now. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. Okay, so there's these horrible 6 judges. Okay, you can remove 3 of them, and one of them you have to advocate for staying. So give me the 3 in order that you would immediately remove, and which one would you advocate for staying?
Oh my God! I mean, I would just immediately change the rule of your question, removing at least 5 of them, which is Robert.
No, that's not the question. Not the question. Pick 3. Pick 3. This is fuck, marry, kill. This is the
Lisa. He's
5, 8.5 mid-Wednesday version.
Yeah.
What's that, Alyssa?
I said, Lisa, he's making you say something nice about one of them.
I mean, Amy Coney Barrett had one good ruling last year, which was on the Fisher case, which was about whether these marauders, these Trump fans, were trying to disrupt an official proceeding. And she said, yeah, the language is official proceeding. That could include counting our votes. It doesn't have to be limited to the Sarbanes-Oxley Financial Reform Act. It's not limited in the language of the statute. And so that ruling would let me maybe think that she like in the next wave of if you could remove them. No, really, because she should never, if she had, like, I've thought about this a lot about kind of her role, like if she was really devoted to the rule of law as a neutral person, the best thing she could have done would be to decline that nomination, to appear before Congress and say, I am going to withdraw my nomination because it's inappropriate to have the Supreme Court manipulated in this way after the Republicans blocked Merrick Garland.
No one would ever do that.
No, but like, and you know what? If she had, I bet the Democrats would have voted for her.
Yeah,
like it would have been like, if she had, but
she did recuse too, didn't she? Recuse.
That's a superhuman act. It's a superhuman act to do that. But that's what she should have done. She should have said, I'm not going to participate in this political capture of the branch as much as I would like to have this role. I will not, if confirmed, I will not serve. I know listen, a girl can dream. You asked me.
Okay, 3. I need the 3 you're removing because there's 4 really bad ones. So pick 3.
Well,
I already know what she'll say. I think
it's not because how do I not have Kavanaugh in there? It's Thomas, it's Roberts, it's Thomas, it's Alito, it's Kavanaugh, it's Gorsuch.
That's the thing, but you have to pick 3. That's the rule. That's the rule.
I'm feeling quite rebellious these days.
Alyssa, what's your pick?
Thomas and Alito right off the bat. I mean, the flag flying and Thomas is like massive corruption, and Roberts is my third, I have to say.
Okay.
So that was me.
If not for Lisa's book, I do have to say, if not for Lisa's book, I probably wouldn't have picked Roberts. But I mean, he's behind everything. He gives the facade of like a legitimate court. He's like the political mind behind the right-wing faction, and the political player that allows them to keep that veneer. So I think definitely Roberts, Thomas, and Alito.
It has to be Roberts because then we get a new Chief Justice.
I would do a term limits that would remove Thomas, Alito, and Roberts, and then I'd remove the other three without term limits. Gorsuch, Kavanaugh.
Yep.
No, you're
okay. Yeah, who are yours, Greg? Who are yours? Tell us.
Roberts has to go because then you get to pick another Chief Justice.
Yes.
And then Alito and Kavanaugh. I would keep Thomas because I think he's probably going to kick sooner than the others.
You're doing a calculation of actuarial.
Oh, that's smart. I didn't think about ages.
Yeah, and I think Amy is okay. She can stay. It's too often that the woman gets blamed for this shit.
I don't know. Gorsuch's Indian decisions sometimes are okay.
Yeah,
I know. He's got like one thing he's good at, and everything else is horrifying. Yeah. This is good. This has been our edition of Fuck, Marry, Kill. Thank you.
I still resist.
You should do a version of this every time.
The reality
is a fun game. This is a fun game. I'm
the first person to call for the impeachment of Brett Kavanaugh. That he shouldn't have been nominated. He shouldn't have been confirmed Supreme Court. He should have been impeached. So we don't
need to impeach him. We can just arrest him for perjury or the money stuff or whatever. You're allowed to just arrest these guys.
He should be impeached for perjury. Brett Kavanaugh should be impeached for perjury.
Or the other things. Come on. Come on. The baseball tickets thing. Come on. He had season ticket packages, and his friends who are all wealthy people made him, who had no money, put him all on his credit card.
And then he got the cash.
But didn't pay his. I don't even understand what all that is. What all that is. Nobody likes the Washington Nationals that much, It's the fucking Montreal Expos, for God's sake. It's not even a thing.
I have gone to some Nationals games, but to be fair, I'm not a true Believer fan.
Not like Brett,
Yeah. Not like Brett.
Not like
Brett.
Well,
I just don't have the keg. I just don't have the pony keg plan.
He likes beer. He likes beer.
That Matt Damon impression of him on Saturday Night Live still remains one of the best of all time impressions.
The problem, though, is that if I'm Brett Kavanaugh, I'm like Matt Damon played.
Yeah, right. It's the wrong right. It does make you seem better.
Like when Kate McKinnon played Rudy, like that's what you want. You want what's her nose to play Sean Spicer.
Yeah.
That ends Sean Spicer.
Yeah, no, that's right. That was a too positive of a casting. It was
that's it. It was a very good impression.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, man.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna move on to the next topic. And Alyssa, you're welcome to stay, or you're also welcome to head back over to the fam. But we're gonna talk about Epstein. So
maybe I'll stay for Epstein and then.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So did you see something just echoed? Okay. Did you see they released these pictures from Epstein Island?
Very creepy. Very creepy.
I have to say, look, I know this is a really minor point in the grand scheme of all the horrible things he does. He has really shitty taste. He just has bad taste. Like all the money he has, it looks like ass in these places. Just terrible decor, terrible artwork. It's all awful. It's just like
Trump's ostentatious ballroom and like spray painted gold, like White House additions.
I think that looks way better than what Epstein was doing. I mean, really,
it really was. It was horrible to see in those rooms and know that
the shit that went on
in an island of predation of people being abused and just horrible. I mean, I'm glad that the Democrats on the committee are releasing these materials. And even the materials that came out of the estate that come out of their estate recently, showing how much Epstein was talking about Donald Trump, and that's in those files, not the files that we're waiting for, perhaps in vain from the Trump administration. Now that Congress voted for them to be released, but I was going to say something. I don't usually speculate like this, but I was really struck by the conversation you had, Stephanie, with Stephanie like 2 weeks ago, Greg, and your guest, about the timing of those emails with Epstein saying, hey, I've got the goods on Trump, and trying to reach a new contact with Putin because his previous contact was no longer on this mortal plane. And then the timing, so the timing is there are these emails where Epstein is saying, hey, I really need to talk to Putin because I've got, basically I've got the goods on Trump, and I've got more, I know how to, control him, in essence, was the suggestion, the implication. And then Trump meets with Putin in Oslo in that weird secret meeting where there was no staff present, no staff, United States president in Helsinki, right? No staff present to do a readout, to be an interpreter. It was all Putin and his interpreter, and Putin speaking English. And then Trump comes out of that meeting just cowed, like he's just received the worst. And then the next thing that happens is that the Trump Justice Department decides to charge Epstein and go to his homes and seize material. And so, that does raise the question, which I'm loath to raise, but I think it's a legitimate, like, when that's the only way that they would actually get access to the safe and the files and the computer drives that may have had compromising evidence about Trump. And I wonder, I sort of wonder whether at some level, whether it was, some particular Rudy Giuliani buddy or some other agent who was part of that investigation, whether Trump thought that when that happened, when they arrested him, when they conducted the search warrant of his houses and the safes and the material, whether he thought information about him was purged. So therefore, he could say, let's release those Epstein files, and that he perhaps believed up until this spring when Bondi informed him, no, in fact, you are all over these files. Not that you've done anything, not that it has, especially incriminating information, but that you're referenced, that you're named, your name appears repeatedly in these files, that then suddenly it was like, oh, wait, we can't release, no, wait, we can't release it. And then we've learned in the past couple weeks or over the last month that the FBI in the meantime has spent millions of dollars in overtime on redaction. Now, ostensibly that redaction is to redact the names of the survivors. No. But I'm sure
Donald Trump is the survivor.
Right. So that, when you all had that conversation about the sequence of that, the period right before Epstein's arrest, right before the search warrants were executed, that, prepared, and what Epstein was saying to people who also wanted leverage over Trump or wanted more leverage over Trump, like that timing was really, wow to me, to think about that it is correlation and not necessarily causation, although it seems a lot like causation,
I didn't realize the Helsinki thing was, that's a good point. I'm gonna have to look into this more. I like this.
Yeah.
I like this. Alyssa, what are your thoughts? Are you going to defend Epstein, or what's the?
Yeah. No, it's just wild. I don't know. I feel like I was naive in 2016 about Russia, honestly, and I just was, and about like how widespread Russian influence was, and I mean, I don't remember. Was it Lisa? Was it you that pointed out to me earlier today, or I think it was another person on our team, who there's just like, I don't know. There's so many Russia connections with Epstein.
Oh, yeah. The most recent, another pardon is another guy who was tied in.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So to me, that's been huge. Like with the Supreme Court too, the foreign influence thing among the right wing is so interesting and powerful. Russia, Argentina, like why is Trump, sacrificing our tax dollars to like bail out Millier? It's just, then we have German heiresses like with Alito, and inviting Alito to like a concert and housing him, and you have aristocracy in Italy who's like, bestowing honors upon Alito. And it's just the foreign influence stuff to me is so fascinating. And it's something that I think fascinates people and should be discussed more, and sort of like bringing it all together too, like how powerful those foreign influences are, because they accuse the left of it all the time. And meanwhile, their own house isn't in order.
Oh, it's not. We haven't even, like, when's the last time anybody talked about how Russia infiltrated the NRA? We didn't even talk about that in years. It's not even important anymore.
Yeah.
But they totally did. Maria Butina and torsion and the whole thing. And it's crazy.
Every
That's
one
a
of
good
these
point.
things is like there was this playbook that was the Karl Rove playbook, which was basically you take your weakness and you accuse your opponent of it. And then
that's the Goebbels playbook.
Whatever their strength is, whatever your opponent's strength is, you muddy that. And so that was that campaign, which was questioning Kerry's military record when Bush's military record was basically absent without leave, from the Air National Guard on repeated occasions. And then it's like, but you can't have your opponent. And so my observation of the right over these many years is they are always accusing you of something that is their weakness. And I can't help but think this whole protect the children thing, the whole Pizzagate thing is like, is some sort of, projection of, and this is not to say that there aren't some bad Democrats who are in that list of people who were frequent flyers with Jeffrey Epstein, but it does seem as though there are some big players on the right who were buddying up with Epstein. And also, like, the other part that I'm going to look into this because I just haven't had a chance to see it, but like there's been all this discussion of Epstein's jets and who was on it, and when Trump was on it, who else was with him, like was Ivana on it, who else was on it, but I don't know that we've ever seen the flight logs for Trump's jets in that same period from the end of 2000, the early 2000s. Where was he flying? Did he ever fly himself? I don't know the answer to that, but I think someone should look into it.
People could fly commercials at St. Thomas and stuff too. You don't have to be on the jet. That's just like convenient, Yeah. The one thing, because I wrote a thing about Epstein this week, just kind of going, I've been going down this big rabbit hole about Robert Maxwell and Epstein and all this stuff. And it's basically what I did all through Thanksgiving, which I don't recommend. But the one takeaway that I have is there's always this, I think this kind of like with Robert Maxwell and with Epstein both is like, Robert Maxwell was working for MI6. No, he was working for the KGB. No, he's working for Mossad. It's like Robert Maxwell was working for Robert Maxwell. And Jeffrey Epstein was working for Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
He wasn't, he had his fingers in all these pies. The military intelligence arm of the IDF, which is called Amman. The guy that was in charge of that during the whole like Iran-Contra era when Jeffrey Epstein was working for Douglas Lease in Britain, who was involved in all these arms deals, and Epstein was doing the offshores and stuff. The person who was in charge of Amman, the military intelligence unit of the IDF during that period of time, was Ehud Barak, who was, went into business with Epstein later and visited him 30 times and all this other stuff. Well, after he was arrested and spent time in jail but he says, I had no idea that this was happening. Dude, you were in charge of an Israeli intelligence agency, and he was already served time in jail for it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the other part, because one of the other revelations, and this is why the news is, it's just this fire hose of news, because one of the other statements, in essence, in the materials that were released from the Epstein estate is that is the suggestion that Trump spent Thanksgiving with Epstein after he was president.
Is that true though? I don't know. I don't know. I worry about shit like that. Like just because there's some little thing in the. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, you don't know. Is it in there to discredit? Right? Or is it real? But what we know is that Trump's claims about when he split off from Epstein are, have been belied by other evidence suggesting that that Epstein was still allowed at Mar-a-Lago until like 2007, 2008.
Yeah, that's just, they might not have liked each other. They didn't go like clubbing for teenage girls anymore, maybe, but they were still, very much, I think, in cahoots, because whatever they're involved with, it's not the girls, it's not the rapes. That's what the American people have already determined that they're okay with it. The Republicans are okay with child rape. We've already established this. They claim not to be, but they are, because if they were not okay with it, they would have demanded accountability from Trump, and they've decided that they're okay with it.
Until the dam broke and they were going to lose that vote in the House, right? And then they decided they're get on the other side of that.
All of these mainline, these like, oh, they're just a noble old school Republican. They all voted for Trump with this shit.
Yeah,
the only people that didn't vote for Trump are the libertarian dude and the two crazy ladies, which is nuts, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the other part that it's like the shortness of memory, because the number of women who have come forward about Trump's treatment of them, about him, touching them without permission, sexually assaulting them, making those allegations, him denying it, but then even with Jean Carroll, the jury finding, the judge, in that case, finding that, he did defame her, that he did abuse her, and then Trump having the audacity to sue 60 Minutes for calling it assault rather than abuse, sexual abuse, and the Republicans are all okay with that. They're
fine. They don't care. They don't care. And we know they don't care because they put Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. And we know they don't care because they put Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. And, and that's it. And we need to, the best case scenario for Trump, I've said this before, I'm going to keep saying it. The best case scenario for Trump is that he was best friends for a decade and a half with the most notorious child sex trafficker of modern times, and allowed him to use Mar-a-Lago as a place to steal, his words, girls for him to traffic and rape. That's the best case scenario for Trump.
Yeah.
How is that not damning enough?
Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. I think it is damning enough. And yet, we're going to move on to the last topic. It'll be brief. Alyssa, stay, because we're going to do the glass half full. Do you have a glass? Do you have a glass of beverage there?
Should we just move to should we do the Nadine and just move to the?
Well, but we have to
Okay.
Because despite who Trump is, what he's doing, what's been happening, how chaotic, how destructive he's been, we have cabinet meetings where people say the darndest things, as they used to say in that kids video. You had Kristi Noem literally thanking Donald Trump within the last 24 hours for the hurricane season not being bad, because he's like super Trump Jesus, apparently.
No, he drew it with a Sharpie.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, if Democrats can control the weather, so can the Republicans. So.
Right.
Apparently. So I just want to say, so there are these. It's increasingly clear, although I'm sure that our fabulous listeners know this. Like, there's two Americas, or probably maybe three Americas. It's probably multiverse America, but there's one America in which we know that Donald Trump doesn't control the weather, and we know that Donald Trump has been engaged in an array of activities that transgress the law, that break tradition, that break the rules, that have been devastating for American families. And then there's this other universe in which Donald Trump needs to be praised like a child at his, 5th birthday party, that you controlled the weather. Thank you for helping us not have that many hurricanes this year, even though there were incredibly devastating hurricanes that hit our hemisphere, that wreaked enormous damage, but just didn't hit the United States, unlike last year when a hurricane managed to make its way up into the Smoky Mountains of America. But, supposedly now with this, this dear leader, these cabinet members, secretaries of cabinet offices, agencies, somehow feel compelled to thank him for the hurricanes not hitting us this year. I mean,
we joke about it, but it really is like a Roman imperial thing. It's like the god to the the vessel of God kind of thing that the king is supposed to have. The divine right of kings shit. So it is it's scarier, and there's more going on there than the surface dumbass shit that we're making fun of. I will also point out before we do our
glass half
toast
full
that you know who can control the weather is Storm. So that's another X-Men. So we're going to go X-Men all through this episode.
Full circle. Love it.
Yes, you brought the comic perspective in. It's the comic book perspective. I really appreciate it. So, okay. So as you all know, at the 5, 8.5, we are your midweek break. We do these stories. We try to offer a chance to refuel, to slow things down and sip and reflect and remember that we're not alone. And as is our tradition, and right before, a month ago, our tradition to drink through the entire show. It was a glass fully flowing over, but we have a glass half full to celebrate this week. There were a bunch of options, but Greg and I decided that it's to see the state of Minnesota, including the police of Minnesota and the police of Minneapolis, respond to this effort to vilify the Somali Americans, the Somali immigrants in that city who are working hard to create the American dream. You go to the Minneapolis airport, every person who's being pushed, from gate to gate because they've got a physical energy is being pushed by a Somali immigrant who's pushing them and their luggage onto their plane. People who are doing nothing besides trying to live their lives, being vilified by this president in response to a person from another country, from Afghanistan, being accused of the shooting in DC of the National Guard there. Suddenly, this is now a Somali thing because this president and his brain, I'm not going to say think laterally, but just basically will use any opportunity to smear people and engage in this grotesque racism and scapegoating. So I just want to say for the governor of Minnesota, for the police of Minneapolis, St. Paul, for the people of Minnesota standing up against this outrageous effort to send federal troops into the Twin Cities, predicated on nothing more than the women caprice of this president, we say, we toast you. We toast you for standing up for our rights. So to Minnesota. Anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I want to say thanks to Alyssa for coming on. Always good to see you.
For having me.
Yes. And thanks for everybody for watching, and subscribe, please, if you haven't, and hit the like button and all that stuff that I'm supposed to say. And I always forget to say these things.
Yes.
But, That's all I've got. That's all I got.
Come back next week for the 5, 8.5 with Nadine Smith, and tune in this Friday for Greg Olear and Stephanie. I'm sure what will be a very illuminating illuminating and fun and horrifying Friday night with drinks.
LB isn't going to be in rare form. It's going to be good. Yes. Yeah.
Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.